Okay, I'm going to get started. Sorry, I was asking a few questions there in the chat, and the question and answer is open as well. So trying to get all my windows laid out here for me so we can do this. Hi, everyone, and welcome on 2 o'clock on a Friday afternoon when you're thinking you'd rather be someplace at home, or it's almost the end of the school day, or for us, literally it's the last hour of office hours for the day. So things are a little bit different for everyone, I know. A little bit about me in brief. I'm Dr. Phillip Pulley. I feel like poor moderator here has to listen to this all again. I'm a high school social studies teacher. I teach communications as well at a small rural district just north of Bloomington, about half hour north at Fieldcrest. I've been teaching for over 25 years now, and I've got a doctorate in education focused on ed tech, professional development, and flipped classrooms, which is what I did my dissertation on. And probably like a lot of folks who did the dissertation on something, they were probably sick of it by the time they got done writing the dissertation. And I kind of was sick of flipped classrooms for a while and some other things going on with flipped classroom community. And then COVID hit in the spring, and suddenly everyone's like, how do I do this? So we use an LMS called Schoology, and I'm the Schoology ambassador, and it's Schoology ambassador of the year in 2018. My wife is also an educator. She taught for over a dozen years, actually, of high school mathematics. And she's taught, in fact, more years, I think now, at the university and teaching future teachers. And we have two daughters, one of whom is a senior, and I'm going to brag because she got her first college application in, and like 4 days later got her acceptance to the University of Iowa, not just to the university, but also into her major, which is engineering, and to her focus of mechanical and robotics and augmented engineering. So yay, I got to pay for that now. Okay, so I'm going to start with, this is talking about visualizing and organizing, and I'm kind of a storyteller. If you were in my last session, I was trying to keep that at bay as much as possible, but I'm quite, I get caught in things. I get off track, so I'm sorry. I like to cook. Okay, so this is my own story here. This is something I made. This is, sorry, everyone's going to be hungry now. These are sea scallops on, that's a sweet corn chorizo and warm spinach, kind of warm salad there. This is something I made that's ponzu marinated salmon, and the sauce is a passion fruit ginger sauce with rice, and that's actually mint on there. And my friend licks the plate when we make this, so we have to serve bread along with that. But I was inspired by this guy, and if you happen to know, oh, I may have to go back in and reset the, it's not letting you open them. I'll check that again, permission on that when we get done here, so that might be my problem. Sorry about that. Let me open, this is not coming down far enough so I can actually see things. There we go. This is a guy by the name of Charlie Trotter, and I didn't know who Charlie Trotter was, and I'm a cyclist, and my buddy is a cyclist, and he's a huge Charlie Trotter fan. And because of that, he was going, finally cooked dinner for me one night, and while I'm waiting for him to make dinner, which was risotto, which takes forever, he hands me this cookbook, and he says, hey, take a look at this. And so, oops, the cookbook is this cookbook here by Charlie Trotter. And when you open the cookbook, it's like on the left-hand side of the page is a description of the recipe and the steps to do it, and on the other side is a picture like this one you see in front of you. And you look at this and you're like, oh my gosh, what is this? And I'm like, turn a page, I'm just skimming through, going page after page. I'm like, who is this guy and who makes this? This is just craziness, okay? But I went back to the beginning of his book, and I said, what's going on here? So I read the foreword, which I'm kind of a forward person when it comes to books. So I read the foreword, and he said something that was different for me than every other cookbook that I'd ever seen before, which was take the recipes, take the pictures, as suggestions, as things that might give you an idea. He didn't say, follow this directly, you're going to screw the whole thing up. He said, take it as a suggestion. You want to substitute an ingredient, feel fine to do so. You have something you kind of, that you already make you kind of go, wow, if I presented it like that, it'd look kind of cool. Feel free. And that's what I want to tell you right now is that I'm a cook. I like to cook as well. And I want to tell you that the suggestions and things that I give you throughout here, take them as that, suggestions. adapt them as you want to make it fit the way it fits for you, or, modify them as much as you have to. Okay. So today we're going to be looking at engaging students with visual organization. I've actually written a chapter and an article on this before. So we're going to discuss research-based information on the importance of visuals in blended and online courses, and including the positive effects on student motivation and engagement. I'm going to give you some tips how to organize courses to give them that visual pop for students to draw them in and engage them, but also that gives them multiple paths to content, which is sort of a universal design for learning kind of content idea. And finding students with multiple paths to content with embedded visuals, Google content, HyperDocs, and more. Okay. And I want to give examples here for Schoology, which is the LMS that we use. I'll give some examples also for Canvas. I still have a free account because I won't lie, my first Schoology pages were designed in Canvas and brought over into Schoology because the editing space is so much bigger. And even Google Classroom, which a lot of schools use because it's free. Okay. And so there's the kind of platforms on that we'll be looking at a little bit. So why visuals? And I'm going to burst some bubbles, and feel free to yell at me in the chat here or in the Q&A. It's not about learning styles, because I hope you're all sitting down. Learning styles don't exist. Okay, we'll get to that in a second. But however, when it comes to communication and all of our inventions for mass communication, pictures still speak the most universally understood language. And when I tell you who said this, you're going to go, of course that makes sense. That's from Walt Disney. Okay, pictures things. In fact, the earliest written forms of language were pictograms. So I'm a history teacher. So, okay. So research shows that visuals help students find their way. And this is the same thing on a website. If you've gone to a website and kind of go, I couldn't find this, and you're mad by the time you find it, and so you're mad at the company by the time you find the thing you need because it was so hard to find. Well, that's kind of what we want to avoid in education. We want to make it so it's easiest for our students to get to and find things. Okay, so in 2010, and by the way, all these things you see underlined here are also in the presentation. And I think, Savannah, I think you got the full length. I must have typed it in wrong. So this is the, I might have copied the wrong one. But you're saying you guys can get it from there now. The S was missing from the end. Okay, I didn't copy it all. Thank you, Savannah. So all these links in here are hyperlinked to the certain articles and research. So if you're interested in getting that stuff. The 2010 research on student perceptions of online, blended, and face-to-face courses state that the purpose of multimedia elements should be to deliver content. That visual elements tell students where they are, what they're doing, and how things are ordered. So that's Castle and McGuire. So think about these kinds of things about, where are we, what are we doing, how are things ordered? Kind of reminds me of in history, the who are we, where do we come from, where are we going kinds of questions that we think about in terms of history's big questions. Okay, and again, throughout this thing, the hyperlink things, the underlying things are going to be hyperlinked. But visuals are about way more than just trying to make things look pretty. Okay, 2014 research on attractive visual design says layout, colors, imagery, etc. evoked positive emotions in learners that can actually help facilitate the learning process. If I feel more engaged, or this seems like a nicer place, and I think a great example of that, I mean, how many of you out there might possibly have a Bitmoji classroom, especially elementary ed majors out there or elementary teachers? And in fact, of all the Schoology training videos I've seen out there and the ones that I've actually made, there was one that had like 40,000 views, and it was how to embed your Bitmoji classroom in Schoology. And so that's kind of thing. Why? Because that's, that positive emotions in learners can help facilitate that learning process. Okay. So anything you can do to make your digital content online visually appealing is a great step in trying to do that. Okay. So, but again, engagement is about more than just making your course look pretty. Okay. So there's some things called non-verbal immediacy behaviors. So they found that in a virtual classroom that, excuse me, online non-verbal immediacy behaviors are design aspects. Okay, so aspects of design that draw us in to want to do things. Okay, visual imagery, audio, and video, okay, are related to higher levels of course engagement by students. So the more of those things you have, the more engagement there tends to be with students. There's also things you might hear in terms of, hey, when it comes to video link and things like that. I had a lot of people saying, oh, here's how long video should be for every grade level, blah, blah, blah. And actually there is little to no research on that. But some of the truisms are true, but there hasn't been a lot of research out there. Okay, so this again was Dixon et al. Again, these things are all linked. Visuals again help engage students. They're talking about the importance of visuals again, is this idea that we can engage them. Anything that will engage them and get them in. So basically then that visual appeal is not just about making things pretty, it's a byproduct of good instructional design. And that's what I think is important for us, keep in mind. So getting started here, I'm going to tell you that if you're in classroom, I've got a few examples. It's hard to make things really visual outside of putting things into questions or embedding videos sometimes in things. It's a little bit tougher to do things than it is in some other, if you have an LMS like a Canvas, like a Schoology. But the first thing to do is try and think about things I can do that are on the small side of things. So a 2018 post listed 4 types of graphics that enhance student learning. And these are decorative elements. These are the things that are most often used that look pretty, okay? And so a Bitmoji, if you make a Bitmoji of yourself as a character, that's decorative. But if you make a Bitmoji classroom that has interactive links on it, that's gone way beyond decorative, okay? These add very little instructional value, although they're the most used. They can be things that kind of help that overall, feeling kind of welcome kind of experience. Then there are relational things that show the relationships between variables. And that think about, in education, hey, if I put an icon like this, talk about, oh, we have books, an apple, and maybe we're talking about, teaching, and I'm seeing a world there, and must not be a geography teacher because the continents are backwards there. Okay, or if I have a chart, excuse me. If I have a chart, it's the same kind of a thing. That's showing the relationship between variables and things. The other 2 they mentioned on here are things we want to focus on, which are representational graphics, things that actually describe or portray the content that's going to be there, okay? And organizational graphics, these are things that help students to, grasp the course content, the flow and the sequence and the pace, okay? So as I said, representational graphics I had for my students on the unit folders, instead of just having the folder with this description of what's in the folder, it's about early humans and civilization. I put a landscape picture in there of a ruined early city from a civilization, and that kind of helps represent what it is they're doing. And also in the case of the LMS, that actually makes the link, instead of just clicking on this link, the whole images as well. I've in fact actually moved on for those now and added on a little description, made it a table and put a little text thing that even explains a little further. So this is what my first course in Schoology looked like. And if you were in classroom, you might have the same kind of thing. We just have this sort of flow of things, but an LMS gives you this one thing that's kind of nice is folders here to organize things. And I've organized mine by units. And then we've also got a project. I've got an MLA resource that are for students so that they can use that. In fact, all the English teachers have that in their classes now as well. The text, although I have the relevant text chapters in every single unit. I have, the plans, the syllabus, all that kind of stuff in there. So all this stuff is in there. That was always for me under construction. We actually came from another LMS, My Big Campus, which has gone away and moved into Schoology. So in here, now my course looks like this. And so instead of just having a unit, you can see again, here's that, early civilization, but it says unit 1 from, the evolution of modern humans to early civilizations. And same thing here. This is ancient Greece, Minoans, Mycenaeans, the Golden Age to Alexander. So not only do I have this visual representation of, Athens, Greece here, I've also got a little description as well. So I'm trying to get all these things in there to kind of help engage the students. Okay. So if you have Schoology, for example, and I know Canvas has done this as well, and you can do this sort of on the header in Classroom, is you can change your course image. And in dashboard view of Canvas, you can do that as well. But these aren't the only options, okay? You can create a personal image. These are early ones I did before I even had my doctorate when we first started for some of my classes, because the course image didn't have to be as small as you wanted. I created those in Google Slides, and then I'm on a Mac, so I just, Control-Shift-4 and got those, or you could do, preview and do a screen cut, or if you're on Snip, if you're on a Windows-based machine. What I've done now is I've started doing a lot of my things in Canva, and I create these top borders, and then I go in and just, once I download them, I rotate them and put them in, and I have these long images that are a little bit different. So if you don't have a Canva account, by the way, and you want to do some visual things, Canva is free. And if you then go in and get the certification thing as being an educator, you get basically access to a lot of the pro features for free. And you know, us as teachers, we're so used to doing so much with so little for so long. We're now qualified to do anything with nothing. But for us, free is always a great thing, or low cost. Okay, so getting started, these things look kind of nice in courses. As I said before, they look nice in the dashboard. They can be sometimes, in the case of Schoology here, they actually fixes the first one that popped up was always sort of elongated. It's now the drop down is much nicer. But these are the kind of things in here. But again, these are a nice representational addition in terms of, here's the course. It says Western Civ. You see in the main view of the drop down, I've got a sandbox version of my course. I've actually updated all these since these images have been in here. Okay. And that looks nice in Canvas as well. As I'm going to show you, you can do some things to kind of show some elements in there as well. Before you could only change the course colors. And I found a way, actually 5 years ago, found a way to hack those images in. And then they actually said, how did you do that? And I told them, and they said, oh, and now basically they've made a thing where anyone can do this, and you can kind of then change. It becomes almost like a filter versus a color. Okay. I also put a course banner if you're in Google Classroom. So again, that's that same kind of thing. I made a banner in here. And this is the sandbox version, but you see it says Western Civ. I got the Fieldcrest logo on there because we're at Fieldcrest. This was the sandbox version of the thing. And then I've got the list of things down here as well that you can do as well. Okay. Again, these are nice representational additions. Okay. Again, as I did these long landscape images to folders, which I've also updated as being representational. And now I've gone in and made them a little bit descriptive as well, so that they're not just representational, but they're also, you know, version 2, a little bit, you know, nicer. And if you're a Schoology user, all I did was go in and insert. There's not the option to insert in some of the things like, and here you can actually insert a table. I made the table with no border, put the image in, typed in the things, and then just saved it. And that's what gives me that kind of view. Okay. But a lot of things I make in Schoology, I make on Schoology pages. And I did the same thing in Canvas. I would go on Canvas pages and make them and not publish them to students or make them available to students and make things. I have all kinds of unpublished test and practice pages to do kind of things that I want to do. Okay, there's some trial and error, but I copy once I get it set. It's once you get one set in whatever platform you are, and you kind of like the way it looks when if you hit save and see the final version of the thing, then we get that one set, copy to the other one, and then just change the text, just change the picture, and the design layout will then be good for you. Okay. And again, what I've done now is I've gone and moved into this idea of adding also this information along the side here in this 2-table form. Okay. Again, this also becomes part of that clickable link. I have some students, someone in the class talked about some people with some you know, special ed students. I have students that are inclusion students in all my classes pretty much. And I've had over the years some with fine motor skills. And even with the touch screen, it's so much nicer for them to be able to hit that as a target as opposed to just, you know, the link here. Like all this then becomes sort of the target for them to touch. Okay. But we're gonna level up, and this is actually a suggestion from my friend Glenn, who is big into gamification of classrooms. And so he said, oh, if you're going to go up to the next level, you got to make sure they get some XP. And I'm like, I'm not even really sure what that means, Glenn, but here it is for him. So in home pages, this is what I started with. And these were actually designed again in our first LMS, My Big Campus. And I copied those into Canvas when we were trying to figure out which one we're going to switch to when My Big Campus went away. And I organized them, and I've got things in here where I've got all these images on here are hyperlinked to the unit assignments, to the study guide for that unit, to the unit 1 resources, to the textbook, to the unit videos. This is an embedded Google Doc on the page that, excuse me, is not only a calendar, it is also in there. All those things are hyperlinked, and not to individual assignments, but I hyperlink them to the folder of the given assignment. So if you click on the study guide, it's going to go to the study guide assignment. All the other assignments are in the unit assignments folder. So I don't have to click each and every one of those to that individual assignment. I click it to the folder. Same thing with the videos in that case. So that's again the unit homepage. Today, what I've done is I've kind of made some changes, and I started doing this with my my unit pages. Is I've got this little banner across the top here. that links them to these things. And I thought, well, if that's what I'm doing there, why am I still doing these big icons from 5 years ago on this page? And so what I have done since then to make some consistency is I copied that table and I put it in the same place. As a matter of fact, within the unit folder, I go into every folder and create a page at the very top of that material. And I add in just that table of things. So when they're in the daily assignments, they still have that table of icons that will get them to other materials in that unit. So again, it's about that idea of trying to be consistent throughout things. My stuff is always changing. I'm always trying to modify things. So again, you can see that home page is in here. And I'm trying to be consistent in this case from unit to unit. And in this case, oops, went too far. This is unit 1. The layout is the same in terms of here's the icon things. And then the second unit is again the same thing. Here's the unit plans. The unit plans are the same. The one thing that's missing is I started this year. This is from this year. I started this year with some extension activities I wanted to do, and then quickly became a parent with a block schedule and only seeing students every other day that these extension activities I wanted to do, I am now no longer able to do. So I took that off later on in the unit, and you can see it's not on here, and it will not be on other units, at least through this semester, because we don't have the time. Okay. So moving on here, you can do this also a little bit in Canvas as an example. They've got, this is a set of pages that I developed in there so far. I haven't done all of mine, obviously, but that page is in there as well. And then again, I copied, you can do that sort of page. Initially, it was kind of look like this with the big icons again, and then I've gone in and updated that with the banners and stuff. Playing around, I don't have it finalized in there because, again, it's not what I use every single day. But I have friends who do use Canvas in the districts where they're at, and I try to give them examples as well. Okay, so moving up here a little bit, moving up beyond the leveling up, we're going to go to the ninja level here. So all my units, again, as I said, have their own homepage. Okay, and again, I'm very consistent in how I lay these things out. Those images are hyperlinked to the folders within each unit. So this is the resource folder. This is the textbook, which is actually a folder of itself. And I realize since we are on Chromebooks, that doesn't actually take them to the folder of PDFs in Schoology. I take them right to the Google Drive now of those folders. This is the daily assignments. Every unit has its own study guide, which I give to them at the very beginning of the unit. And that allows them to then go in and start working on it as they go along. I tell them, as you're doing the sets of reading questions and watching the lecture videos, those answer the questions that are also on the study guide, which make up the test. So as you're going along, work on that as every day as you do the other things. And I just do that when it's a completion grade and we go over it before the test. Okay. So again, the newer homepages here to kind of give you some ideas. The images I said are hyperlinked. This became the inspiration for that banner, which is, if you're a Schoology user, actually a kind of a hack. Chat with me later or send me an email or a message later on and I'll get you there. I've got this Google Calendar. This is an entire calendar for the Google Doc for the unit. And it's not a hyperdoc that's really, a bunch of images that's kind of cool, but it is a hyperdoc in the fact that every time you see an underlying thing here, that's actually hyperlinked to that reading assignment. It actually goes to this folder because they have to do the assignments in order. So all these things are hyperlinked to exactly those same kind of things, okay, within that document, okay? So what I'm making here is on this page, it's visual, it's representational, it's relational, it's organizational, and it's representational. I get all these elements, okay? And some would say just by the fact that I've got some things in here is a little bit decorative as well. Okay. So again, banners, I make this on a table or a page. In Canvas, it's a little bit different because you can actually make things to be like the landing page for the unit. You could do that also in, for the course when they come in, that becomes the page they land on automatically. And that was what I came from in my big campus. Well, you can't do that in Schoology. It just goes to the materials or their updates, recent activity page. And so when they hit the updates or their materials page, it's that list of materials. So I created this sort of hack of this image and this table down here at the bottom to hyperlink them on a page. Some of my friends make them in Google Docs. I have sometimes trouble with getting them from the Google Doc to actually going to Schoology. So I do them all in there. So I've got a table in there as well. Those things are all hyperlinked. It's just a 7x1. I place images in each cell, select each image, hyperlink them with the hyperlink icon on there as well. And then that becomes, the thing that lets me get everything in there. Then I copy that, okay, because it's representational. Okay, it's also organizational because these things then help you jump right to those things. I only have to scroll down to the unit. I don't have to click on that unit, then click on the assignments, and then click on the daily assignments. I can go right to any of those things from that banner. I don't have to scroll down the side and look at the upcoming activities. I can, again, just jump right to those things. And that's the advantage of these things. It's making their life easier. But can they still get there the other ways? Yes. Can they still go to the calendar and click on the item for that thing, get there? Yes, they can. Can they still go to the calendar that's actually in Schoology or in Canvas or get there? Yes, you can. Okay. So hyperlinking these things to the course materials makes things a lot easier. Next one is looking at some things with assignments. And this is an assignment that I have for my students. And this is a screenshot of the assignment. And I'll show the actual assignment in a second. This is the assignment they have at the very beginning of the year, which is called How My Brain Works. And I connect Blink 182 to the Roman Empire. Okay, technically the Roman Republic at the end of the Republic before the Empire. Okay, when they were an empire before they really knew they were an empire. And then I have another video called Who, Where, which is history's 3 big questions. Who are we? Where do we come from and where are we going? Okay, we're Americans, so it's who am I, where am I going, and where am I come from, where am I going? But this is the kind of thing I did in there. This is from a friend of mine, Ryan O'Donnell. If you're on Twitter, he's at Creative Ed Tech. It's actually on Template Palooza. This thing in here is representational and organizational because what I've got in here is this is the intro to the class. It talks about things. And I've also then got this first video is like how my brain works. Okay. The second one is I'm not just history 3 big questions, but I say history is like a puzzle. And when I put the videos in there, this is actually in the first lecture video, and I kind of go through and describe things. So this is an assignment they have to do, but it's also a nice introduction to the course as well. It kind of tells them how I'm going to be running things basically for the rest of the year. Ryan O'Donnell in the Temple Palooza, he's got lots of templates for Google Slides that are kind of fun. If you're a Harry Potter fan, the Daily Prophet one rather is really fun. And my daughters were very envious of that one. I can say, however, when you drag the video in, they come in as being in color like the videos actually are. And my daughter said that doesn't look right. So I went out and took a bunch of slides, still frames from throughout the video, got a GIF or GIF. You can argue about that later in comments, which one you want to call it, and created the little ones to put in there, which are then hyperlinked to the actual videos. So that was a lot of work for an assignment, but the kids really liked that. And I've got a few scattered throughout the course as well. Okay. So in assignments, things like this, it's kind of a little bit harder to do. If you're in Google Classroom, I can add some things, into the actual things. It's hard to actually embed, a presentation within a question, which you can do in an LMS. I can put a link in there. I can put an image in there, but trying to get, other things in there, unless they've updated here in the past couple months since the springtime, they have added some new assignments, Google assignments. I haven't looked at that one in a while, so there might be some options that they have on there as well. In Canvas, you can do some things that are very similar, putting things in there as well. And again, I got that example of Daily Prophet. I've actually created that, an example of that same thing into Canvas as well. So you can add these elements into various LMSs or into Classroom. Classroom, again, as I said, it's a little harder to add a whole lot of elements. It's just the nature of it. It's not a true LMS, and they don't try to claim to be one. Okay, so again, these last 2 are actually in Canvas. Okay. So again, communication research tells me, however, that 85 to 90% of what I just talked to you about, you are going to forget. Okay, which is why, thank you again, Savannah, for getting the link to these things out there to them. And usually I get a bunch of questions between here. So if you've got questions, feel free to throw them again in the Q&A or in the chat. But this is not, I remember when I was an early teacher and I read a thing in the Kaplan magazine, and it said, oh no, is history got a problem? And they had run a test of students who had just recently graduated high school and asked them these US history basic questions, and they scored like 15 to 20% on the test. And they're like, oh my gosh, history is failing us in schools. And it's not history, it's our methods, in fact, because if you go to a movie and you love that movie and you are so engaged, you can come out of that movie, you and your friends or your spouse or whoever you went there with, and you can spout lines back and forth from the movie verbatim, and you just saw it. Okay. And we don't see that oftentimes in education when I'm giving you this rote list of things to remember and write this down. And are we ready? Are we ready? Are we ready? And so that oftentimes doesn't happen. It's not so much that, it's how much we engage the students that improves that memory thing. So this might be forgotten, but I've got some resources for you as well. Canva, which is where I create a lot of my visuals, okay, design anything. And again, when I first started, I was doing everything on either slides or on pages in Schoology. And now I do, if I want it to look really slick, I definitely go to Canva. They also now have, a friend of mine just told me, they have a video editing thing where you can make some short little video things in there, templates, introduction kind of things, which are really kind of cool. So if you want to make a little intro, bumper for your videos that you send out for your students, if you're going to record them in Camtasia or Snagit or Screencastify or Screencast-O-Matic, you can make a little thing on here at the beginning that you can drop into the beginning of those things. And there are some nice tools in there for it, as well as tons of templates for things. We have an English teacher here who actually uses Canva for having students design resumes. Caitlin Tucker, if you know her, she also uses Schoology, and she does a lot of things with engagement and thinking about things like SEL. And so lots of resources from her that are great. She's also got she does not just examples in Schoology, she also does examples of things in Classroom as well. Okay, you can see the list of things, and she's got session things is there as well. Ryan O'Donnell, who again was the guy who did the templates, it's Template Palooza, or Ryan O'Donnell, he's at Creative Ed Tech on Twitter. Alice Keeler, if you're a fan of hers, has a lot of good things where she talks about a lot of stuff, mostly with Google content and doing things. There are other people out there as well who do lots of stuff. If you're not on Twitter, please see me or message me or email me here when we get done, or throw your name up in chat if you want to know more. A good friend of mine, Glenn Urban, did a thing about a blog post about 10 tips for getting started with EduTwitter, which is here's how to follow things. And if you follow someone who's an education person, and George Kurosov, for an example, said, if you're an educator and you follow me, I will follow you back. But I'm only going to know you're an educator if you fill out your profile to say you're a pre-service teacher or that I'm a teacher working. So if you don't tell me that, he goes, then I don't know. He goes, and maybe I don't have time to scroll down and kind of see the things that are clearly education related that you're sharing, then I don't know. But hopefully you fill that out and can get started at ISU. I know TCH 401, Dr. Anna Smith does a lot with that. And I would tell you, if that's a great place to be to get information. It's how I found people to do my dissertation study, some of them. Okay. Resources, I did a short paper on this. If you want to kind of the condensed version of this, it's using visuals to increase engagement and learning. That was in Principal Leadership. And then I told my boss I was writing this, and then when it came out 3 months later, he was like, hey, why don't you tell me about this? I'm like, I did tell you about that. So, and I've also wrote a chapter on that that's in a book. So there's some things I'm trying to do. Again, I want to open this up for questions. I don't want to keep everyone here late. It's going on 3 o'clock on a Friday. I'm Phillip Pulley. My school email is pulley@unit6.org, which is so much better than fieldcrest.k12.il.us. I'm at Phillip Pulley on Twitter, if you're on Twitter. The slides, this should be the correct one here, the bit.ly. I think I missed the S, someone said when I was typing in there. I was trying to be in a hurry. If you're a Schoology user and you're interested, I have a sandbox version of my course. This is the course code. Feel free to jump in there and join that. You'll probably get, you'll get 3 badges from me right away, which will make you look cool because I'm a Schoology ambassador, former Schoology ambassador of the year, and I've got one badge in Schoology. But every time I go to a conference, I'm always presenter, so I'm always an admin in the course, so I never get a badge. Anyway, and I use badges for things like rewarding students. They all just got their new if you're interested in badges, I just gave them all their first youngling badge, which means they've completed their first unit in Schoology. By the time they end the 9 weeks, they'll get their Padawan badge, and then they move up, and by the end of the school year, they get their little Lego Yoda badge, which means they're now Schoology masters. But I also given some for my students who were gone and got their work done when they came back and had it done. They get an e-learning badge. I have students who get badges for several other things. If you find a mistake of mine in something, they get a badge for proofreading, or a grammar police badge, or I think they get the third one that's like what's wrong with you, Dr. Pulley, kind of a badge I made up. But I also have students, I give them a test retake, and I used to give them these nice little test retake tickets that look, little test retake ticket. And instead of doing these little tickets again, which they often lost, I made badges. So they have a test retake first semester, test retake second semester. Gave the badges to them for this semester. And when they take their test and use that ticket, I take the badge away so that I know that they've taken the test. So I'm not seeing any questions right now or anything in the chat. So let me get back over here. If it will go back over. There it goes. How do we get the sandbox course? Someone asked if you have a Schoology account already. Okay, and so I'm guessing maybe you have if you have a Schoology account, and again, you can create a Schoology account. It's free for the basic version, the non-paid version. They've gotten rid of some features because they've seen like a 7-fold increase in the number of users since springtime. And so if you have it for school, you go to courses, my courses, and then join course with code and put that code in there. By the way, the capital letters it's not case specific, and you don't need the dash either. So you have the set, you can just go in there and join. And I'll look, once you're in there, you'll get a request from me to connect in Schoology, which means that you could message me directly in Schoology if you feel more comfortable doing that versus sharing your school email. I get so many emails now that by the time I get done from this session, the last session, I'm going to have like 50 emails when I get done. So, and if you don't have it, if you're a pre-service teacher, I would tell you maybe something you want to do is go create for yourself a free Canvas account. Go create for yourself a free Schoology account. Create for yourself a Google Classroom account, because if you can play around with those things, if you go into an interview and say, yeah, I already know how to use Google Classroom, I already know how to use Canvas, I already know how to use Schoology, or at least I'm familiar with it, that's going to be something that might be the make or break kind of thing for you in this day and age. So I certainly, would tell you, it's worth having this. Like I said, we don't use Canvas in our district, but I keep my free account because I want to be able to go around and play with it and see. I go in, if nothing else, every 2 or 3 months and go, hey, what's new? And I look around and see what's new. And so I would encourage you to do that as well. I taught or helped co-teach the 401 class, and I did a class which is, I can't remember what it's called now because they changed the name slightly, but it was the first time it had ever been taught. When I was doing my doctorate, I had to do an internship, and that was teaching a class that had never been taught before, but just don't do that if you're a grad student. Pick one that's already been taught before. But in there, I had my students actually compare LMSs and say, find 3 and tell me what you think. Give me a brief review of each, and then tell me which one you like best and why. And I think that's a good thing for all of you to do if you're a pre-service student, a student, teacher kind of thing, is to know these things a little bit. Because if you get thrown into a classroom and they're going to say, well, all my stuff's in Google Classroom, and they expect you to be able to jump right in. If they're in Schoology, they're going to expect you to be able to jump in relatively quickly. If you're in Canvas, same thing. So words of advice to you, I would say. Okay. Other questions anyone might have? I know a lot of this example-wise was in Schoology, but again, I try to include examples from Classroom, which is a little harder to put visuals into, as well as Canvas. But I can tell you that if you're using the free version of Canvas or using the free version of Schoology, the nice thing is you can take a bunch of YouTube videos and embed them on a page. And then the students aren't going to a link that takes them to YouTube, and then they're running down that rabbit hole of suggested videos and seeing all the flame wars and comments. Instead, they're watching the video right there. When they're done, they go on to the next item. And anything you can kind of do to keep them in one spot versus having to log into something else, anything that you can embed into or your Canvas course or your Schoology course is an amazing tool, because that's a time saver. That's one less login. That's one less thing they've got to get into. So, okay. We've got about a quarter till here, which is usually when I kind of end these kind of things. But if you have questions, please feel free to let me know. If not, thank you for sticking around on a Friday afternoon on a chilly fall day. It's about 60 degrees in my classroom right now. So when I get done, I'm going to drink some coffee and put my coat on because I'm cold. I did wear my ISU colors today because I won't show you my ISU socks and my red shoelaces, but take my word for it. Okay. No other questions?
Thanks again, Dr. Pulley, for
Okay.
sharing with us today. Attendees, I just have a few housekeeping items. I am posting a link to the schedule again, and also our email address today. Reminder that a survey is going to be emailed after the conference, and we'd love to hear your feedback. PD credits are available through ROE 17, so you must attend the entire conference in order to receive credit. We're not doing partial credit at this time. And to request those credits, you'll have to fill out a form on the T21Con website, which should be in the chat, and email us if you have any questions. Thanks so much for being here today.